This video is brought to you by Mubi, a curated streaming service showing exceptional films from around the globe. Get a whole month free at mubi.com/SpikimaMovies. I love good violence in films. I understand this may sound insane, but movie violence can be a great thing. It can reiterate the theme, open up a new narrative course, develop characters, or simply augment the horror the film is supposed to deliver. It's not always a competition of what is more extreme, but compelling. One way of crafting compelling violence is to play with people's expectations. What makes that one scene from Zodiac or that brutal kill from Bone Tomahawk so effective is the fact that these films are more atmospheric and narratively driven than other horror subgenres like slasher or splatter films, making the sudden on-screen brutality feel extra horrific due to its unexpectedness. After all, they never even telegraph the violent speed with the score or the cinematography, and instead keep everything neutral and realistic from start to finish. The scene from Zodiac requires no explanation as to how disturbing it is, but that scene from Bone Tomahawk was so out of nowhere it still haunts my dreams, thank you very much. The same goes for well-executed off-screen violence. The curb stomp from American History X or the lust murder from Seven are extremely difficult to watch despite only being implied, because they have prioritized establishing a violent atmosphere to have the viewers constantly anticipate bloodshed. Even when the camera cuts away before anything happens or the film simply describes what went down after the fact, the built-up trepidation is enough to prompt the audience to fill in the blanks with their imagination.
Oh God, oh God, oh God, he had a gun in my mouth! The fucking gun was in my throat!
A film that makes one of the best uses of this idea is Jeremy Saulnier's 2015 work, Green Room. Specifically, there is one scene that upset me so much that I actually had to take a break before returning to the film. If you've seen the film, you probably know which scene I'm talking about. It's the notorious door scene where one of the leading characters, Pat, gets his arm stuck in the door and brutally hacked by those standing behind it. Before going any further, I'd like to preface by saying that I'm going to blur out and tiptoe around many things because otherwise this video won't be visible. And on that note, I urge you to give this film a shot if you haven't. It's a solid film and it really shouldn't be spoiled. Now, while it is a horrific moment on its own, what makes this particular scene so visceral is that it is, again, unexpected in more ways than one. Narratively, it's because the film stays relatively uninvolved with explicit violence or terror until this point. There are narrative obstacles that hint at dramatic turn of events, but those elements never yield anything substantial and usually prove to be rather safe. The opening car crash has 0 casualties. The two friends siphon gas without anyone noticing. Their interview goes well, they get a new gig, and even with the introduction of the gang, it turns out they operate with the utmost discipline and restraint to a point of staying composed and paying the band after they literally insult them on stage. For nearly half of the film, everything and everyone, except the main characters, remain under control. And this moment is where all of that flips.
You know, if you don't hand over that gun, it won't end well.
Scene-wise, it is because there are both implied and explicit violence at play, beginning off-screen, but ending on-screen. The initial assault is barricaded by the door and only audibly implied. The sharp clanks and piercing scream allude to something gruesome, but nothing is for certain. Until Pat's friend Reese takes one of the gang members, Justin, to the ground and breaks his arm, aggressively playing into the viewer's imagination by creating a parallel image. And before the audience can process the thought, Pat's arm is butchered beyond recognition, completely overshadowing the preceding violence that was, to be fair, already over the top for what has been this film thus far. Off-screen implication, on-screen suggestion, and explicit revelation, all in a matter of seconds. It is the perfect subversion of expectation. Now, this scene is intended to be more dramatic and shocking compared to the rest of the film, as it is the first big turning point in Green Room. But otherwise, the violence in Green Room is always abrupt, plain, and weirdly uneventful. There's no build-up, no dramatic scores, and the camera never lingers on the shot. It just happens, and then everything moves on. It doesn't matter if you're the enforcer of the group, the freshly added protagonist, or the main antagonist. survival leaves no room for tribute, anticipation, or drama.
It's funny. You were so scary at night.
Which brings us to one of Green Room's greatest strengths: tension. Specifically, tension through omission. Apart from the mentioned use of violence, many of Green Room's most intense sequences are based on narrative obscurity. Is the napkin important? Is that safe to take? Will this dog attack? And can we trust this person?
I promise.
The seemingly important subplots are either underexplored or brushed off as a mere
Clusterfuck.
but they still play into the climax of the film, providing the audience with an unexpected narrative twist. Daniel's plan to run away is what gives everyone a chance to escape. Gabby's complicated relationship with the gang is why he turns himself in. Every crucial detail is in the background of the main fight for survival, as it should be, and the audience must dig through the clues to figure things out themselves. Take the heroin lab, for example. One of the main reasons Darcy's trying to get rid of the band is because of their drug operation. For many other films, this would be the perfect tool to create a new direction for the story. The protagonist could threaten to destroy the lab or bargain with the gang to alter the tone of the film for the denouement. But in Green Room, the lab is just another location. The friends never talk about it, the gang never talks about it, and Darcy obviously never talks about it because it's his lab. He knows everything there is to it.
We're burning time.
The only time the operation is acknowledged out loud is when Amber mentions it to Pat as a revelatory statement.
Heroin. It's not about her. Or us.
With all this, it's quite clear that Jeremy Saulnier wanted the film to be as fat-free as possible. Just comparing the final product with the draft script of the film reveals that even minuscule details have been re-examined and altered to fit the pace. And of course, to maximize the surprise in every corner.
They got my gun.
Shut up.
Listen.
There's even a long monologue about hummus that Pat delivers at one point, and while I love the speech, cutting it out and letting Pat think alone in exhaustion before stating,
I can't die here with you,
is so much richer and emotional.
So don't.
Let me end this section with my favorite expository or lack thereof scene.
Check emails,
They played their set to the crowd.
and we'll assume the wide world knows.
What Darcy is trying to do here is frame the band by creating a fake crime scene. Since Clark, the dog handler, has a beware of dog sign at his private property, Darcy will make it seem like the band got mauled by dogs while trying to siphon gas. Since bullet wounds are way harder to cover with dogs than knife wounds, and because bullets might be traced back should there be any pieces found, the gang will refrain from using guns. With that in mind, take a look at how Green Room handles this plan.
Okay, this is good. No guns. You have a no trespassing sign posted at the residence.
We got beware dogs.
That's better.
See, Darcy doesn't have to spell things out loud because they would have been through similar processes in the past. The audience has no idea, but if they pay attention to this interaction, Darcy's plan will become more and more evident with each story progression.
You think Cowcatcher's gonna talk?
I'm more worried about their habits. Really have to stay away from that dope. It's a bad batch doing the rounds.
Beyond shock and terror, the door scene is essentially a clash between two opposing forces representative of the two sides of expectation. There is the band, always spontaneous, careless, and unpredictable, and the gang, meticulous, careful, but comparably predictable. While the gang sticks to their guns, the friends lose their natural flow in the face of danger, thinking, planning, and becoming predictable. From the start, the band was never going to win this confrontation. Green Room doesn't expect the band to go through a transformation. In fact, they should remain as unchanged as possible. Pat sees this midway and tries to communicate that they cannot win against the gang by playing a predictable game.
In the first few rounds, these guys just tore us to shreds. But Rick...
Tiger, you done?
Pat, you're done too. Sorry, man, we gotta go.
That's okay.
But survival first. It's only when they've tried everything and are at the brink of death that they fully re-embrace their character.
Let's pretend.
From violence to backstories, to structure itself. Would it be an overstatement to say that Green Room is a celebration of unpredictability? Yeah, absolutely. But I'm still going to say it, and much more. Oh, speaking of, I remember reading the draft script for this video and finally understanding the one and only scene that felt like a plot hole because it never quite made sense to me.
Tell somebody who gives a shit.
Hello everyone, thank you so much for watching this video. My original intent was to focus on implied violence in films by pulling scenes from different works, but Green Room had too many fascinating things to gush about that I couldn't resist making a video about the film. So I do hope you enjoyed this one, and speaking of great cinema, thank you Mubi for sponsoring today's video. Mubi is a curated streaming service dedicated to elevating great cinema from all around the globe, ranging from works of iconic directors to emerging auteurs. And since every film is handpicked, it's a great way to watch films you already love and also discover new films you haven't seen before. For instance, I live in Canada and I got to rewatch Christopher Nolan's debut film, Following, on Mubi, which is another film that masterfully builds tension through different cinematic techniques. And plus, it's always fun to visit the first work of a renowned director, so if you wish to see films like this, as well as many other great works, go try Mubi free for 30 days right now by using my link at mubi.com/SpikimaMovies. That's mubi.com/SpikimaMovies. Go check it out, and that's it from me.